then I would not have got anything across. But when I did that, now it doesn't mean that when I left, he accepted the fact that you shouldn't do Christmas trees. But at least now he has an option to accept what I said, and he wasn't going to accept me regardless if he didn't accept me then.
And it sounds like you actually were in the position of, again, that second witness, second or third witness, because he'd obviously heard that somewhere before.
Right.
If you didn't bring it up, he'd obviously, that.
No, the verse to me was so obvious that anybody who read that verse knew that it was talking about a Christmas tree. But since I showed it to the verse to him, even though I didn't say anything about Christmas or a Christmas tree, then he was defending. But when I didn't say, well, I didn't know, I didn't say anything about a Christmas tree, where'd you get it?
Let's go back to 1400.
Right.
What would they call that then?
Probably something else.
Obviously.
Oh, what?
Today we call it a Christmas tree.
Call it paganism.
Back then, say 1400 or something of that nature, what would that, read that same scripture, what would it have been called then?
Probably a Yule bush or something like that, or, yeah, right.
So that's culture. That's what you were bringing out earlier.
Yeah.
And also, back then, when I first got into believing in the Sabbath and the holy days and everything else, everybody, when we'd get discussing religion and I would come up with some of the ideas that I had, they would automatically come down on me because they said, what church do you go to?
Yes, Fred, we know.
And I would always answer, the First Church of Fred Acker, because I was the only one going there. And if you are able to add humor to things, it is hard for people to really be critical of you, because I can sit and laugh at it, well, then they have to. And I learned that comedy is one of the best ways of getting your point across and without pushing it down their throats. Because the only way they're going to accept it is if you don't push it down their throats.
Gabriel, you had something? Yeah, so just, we're kind of keep revolving around this idea of Christ versus culture, Christ influencing culture. And so you make the point that when we all come back to the standard of Torah, then that makes things clear. And in one sense, that's true, but we all have different perspectives on what the Torah means. We all have different perspectives on what is godly and what is ungodly in the culture. I mean, there are people in our group with tremendously different views of what parts of our culture are acceptable and what parts are not. I mean, we have people in our group that associate and they would say, okay, I'm not going to do birth certificates, I'm not going to do driver's license or marriage certificates. You know, on one hand, people don't want to use money because the pagan symbolism money. On the other hand, we've got people who say, you know what, I think I'm proud to live in this country, I'm happy for this, I'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. So not to say one's right or wrong, but we have a huge, I mean, that's a day and night difference. But both of them say, you know what, before the government's in charge, God's in charge, and the Torah is the standard. So we have people that say, yeah, I don't see there being any problem going to movies. Other people would say you should never take your kids to movies. You know, we've got people saying we should do, you know, the internet's okay, internet's not okay. All kinds of different things, and you can make a pretty good argument for both things, one way or the other. And so we really got to ask ourselves as a group, I think, these are kind of the things people like to talk about, because a lot of times they upset people when we have different opinions. But we say Yahweh's the standard, or man. Is that what you're doing here, Yahweh? Or
No.
okay. Okay.
I want to follow up what you said in a minute, okay?
Yeah, so if Yahweh's the standard, that's true. But the question we've always had as the church and as Judah goes through the same thing, are we going to be the Hasidics who live in a community? We don't. I mean, some Hasidic Jews, they don't even do business outside of the Jewish community. Some Jews have lesbian pastors. That's obviously not right. The other one, maybe probably not right. You can't be the light of the world. So
let me throw this on,
Yeah.
and then it can go with what you're doing and probably whatever you want to do back. The other day, Jim Hill and I were talking about, how's our growth? How are we doing? And it seems like God will say, hey, here's a line. I want you on my side. Now, this line, it's, for me, one of the very first things was Shabbat. I stepped over, I got on this line. Now, I did it real slow. I just kind of,
Toe the waters.
it took a while on that. And so, I got over here. It wasn't just a little bit later. He put another line over there. It's eat kosher. Okay. Now, I decided to do it not out of anything except I want to honor him. So I decided I got over here. So slowly, then he throws another one at me. Here's one of the holidays. Okay, now you see what I'm working to. Now, I've got some friends over here that are still on this side of the line. They're wanting to get there, but they're not willing to commit the action, the show of love, the show of reverence, and all of this. This relationship that he has put us here for. And this is a growth that we will go through all our life. And we may conquer one of these lines, and we may commit and understand where Shabbat is, and that line, it may be really, really broad. It may have a whole lot to that line. There's no fires, and don't do this and don't do that, and really get legalistic with it. That may be your line. And it may just be a real simple one that you just, my first one was went out on my back porch and had a cup of coffee and I read. That was my first commitment. Just one little bitty toe over that line, just barely. I was ready to take it back just any second. But I'm committed. And then it wasn't too bad. I got the whole foot in there. And it grows. And learning more of the instructions on how to live is God will keep moving that line and challenge you a little bit more. He doesn't challenge me with the big ones up front.
Is that what he's talking about when he says he'll never give you more than you can?
I like the one that he was talking about the other day. It says, the devil will paint you in a corner. God will put you in a corner, but he'll also give you a door to get out. I like that one. I mean, so I thought that was real good. So, this is life and learning and the steps that you go through on that. And this may be a culture issue. This may be, I don't know, whatever it is, one of the steps that God is challenging you, that you're mature enough to take this challenge. Are you going to commit to him on that? So, okay, sorry. Perfect.
I found out though, the hardest, the one that brings, if you
Is
can,
the next one.
if you can,
Always the next
if you can get them to take the step over on the Sabbath, usually some of the, now, not always, but usually someone who eventually, that comes up with admits that the Sabbath was God's thing. They usually will take the other steps themselves, grudgingly, but they will take them.
You know what I found the hardest step for me to cross over is?
Well,
Loving my neighbor as myself.
That's huge.
That's way harder than keeping the Sabbath.
I didn't have any trouble with that.
Can I make a
The thing-
suggestion on that
I
one,
had
though?
trouble- The thing I had trouble with was is that, okay, the guy, he was teaching me, he was, I moved out on my own when I was 17, and the house that I lived in, they rented out the rooms. And they had this fanatic that was, we called him up there. And me and him got to discussing, and he said about the Sabbath the Sabbath was the Saturday, and that you were to spend 24 hours doing it. And I told him, no, that it was either Sunday or it didn't really matter. And he says, prove me wrong. And it took me 6 weeks to prove him right. I went out and got in my mother's encyclopedia Bible, which you can find anything in that. And it took me 6 weeks to prove him right. And I'm talking, I spent all my time that I could spend for that 6 weeks, and I proved him right. Then he did the holy days, and I spent 6 weeks proving him right again on that. And then they told me about eating pork, and I spent 6 weeks proving him right on that. After that, I decided, you know, I'm a Baptist, and the Baptist taught me, I was a hard rock Baptist, which said that, don't believe me, believe the book.
There you go.
And so I'm sitting there, I can understand it because I was a Baptist, believed the book.
Yeah.
And even though it went against what the others had taught, they had already taught me that the book was the number one thing. And I decided nobody's following it. I went around, checked around, and nobody was following the book. And that's when I became the First Church of Fred Ackert.
Well, that's because the Old Testament's been done away with.
Yeah.
We don't have to live by that anymore.
Jimbo.
You know, in answer, Gabriel, whatever your name is over there, to that, the one you were talking about having trouble with that, I don't think that's very unusual, having trouble loving your neighbor as yourself, because most of us don't know how to love ourselves. We're not actually loving ourselves very well. We don't take care of ourselves. We don't, if you will, we don't do the best for ourselves. Just like you'd say, said if, you know, we don't live by his instructions, that would be doing obviously that would be doing the best for ourselves. That'd be loving ourselves the best possible is to do his Torah. So I think it's reasonable why it can be difficult to love your neighbor as yourself. You know, I don't think that's. I think sometimes people have better chance of loving the Lord your God because they already, most of them tend to exalt him, you know, and give him reverence, and you know they expect that of that part of it, of that commandment. But loving your neighbor as yourself.
Well, part of that goes back to culture, because our culture defines love completely different from what God defines it as.
Right.
You know, and America's definition of love is, you know, feel good.
Just
great
about anything.
emotions.
It's just about anything, yeah.
You know, I love whatever,
Mhm.
you know, well.
Twix candy bars.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, to put in there
Very
God's
valid.
direction to love your neighbor as yourself into our definition, we fall short, way short.
I guess all I was saying when I was saying that is there's a lot of instructions that we haven't had as a body of Christ for a long time, and we get those things. But the wide sweep of, if you look at Scripture, or if you look at the sweep of church history, the real problems haven't been that they weren't keeping the Sabbath or not keeping kosher. Like they weren't able to do the rudimentary, weightier things of the law. So I think if we're in this age, if we think that, oh, well, we're gonna have all of our problems solved now that we're keeping the dietary feasts and we're wearing tzitzit and these things, then I think we really overlook the problems that are going on inside of ourselves. Where Yeshua, when he comes to establish the Torah, he's saying, look, I'm here to establish the Torah to show you that it's all about this inward problem you've got, and that all those outward things are a reflection of what's going on inward. But if you focus outward, you'll never get the inward healing. If you focus inward, outward will follow.
Okay, Scott had something to say.
earlier when we were talking about the priest, you know, it is a picture. Of course, you know, in the future we'll be in the Melchizedek priesthood, but if you look back at why the Levites were chosen in the first place, and the first mention is, as I understand, is when Moses comes down from the mountain, they're worshiping the golden calf. He essentially draws a line in the sand and says, whoever's on God's side, step over. And the Levites, they're the only ones that stepped over. That's something that's quite curious. But in Jasher, it actually goes into details of why the children of Egypt were enslaved and how they were enslaved. They were afraid of them because of they were mighty in their history. So they said, let's offer them jobs and we'll pay them every day. And it was to build the supply cities of Pithom and Ramses. And he said, within a period, we'll pull ourselves, well, the Egyptians will go with them, and slowly we'll pull ourselves out, and it'll just be them left, and then we will become taskmasters over them. And the story says it took them a year and 3 months, or a year to 4 months. And eventually, the Egyptians pulled out, and then they stopped paying them their wages. Well, what's interesting is that it says that the Levites were not enslaved. And the reason was because they knew that the offerings that were made by the Egyptians was a lie to entice them. And so, you know, you can just picture that they get this job, they had to have a Social Security number, and you know, from my perspective, of course, and then the
You can sign up for Obama's health care.
yeah.
I think we could all agree on that one, right?
And then the Levites, you know, said that well, you know, we're gonna stay here and provide for ourselves on living on the land. So.
I want to follow up on something. Anybody recognize this at all?
Football field.
It's a whiteboard, right?
It's a whiteboard.
Football.
What's drawn on the football field? What's all drawn on the whiteboard?
Football.
Football.
Football. Everybody understands this, right? Okay.
I didn't recognize it because there were no beer commercials.
Really, I didn't,
Right,
yeah.
can over here, Coors Light, Miller.
Willman
it's
marked
all good.
one of the end zones.
Yeah, I know, I was like,
This one's empty. There's nothing over here. You don't want to go to this one.
Oh.
All right. The picture I've been getting a lot the last couple of weeks is this picture. And just to be honest, I haven't watched a full football game since that one night at Fox and Hamlin give me a tie. Last year, it's the first game I'd watched in 10 years and we won since. I don't watch football that much. Used to. What is this right here?
line of scrimmage,
Game plan.
That's the team. That's the game plan. What is this over here?
crowd.
Audience.
Cheerleaders.
Sideline.
Oh,
So the crowd's way out here. This is a big stadium. This is like, you know, the Coliseum or something. And this, we'll call this the head coach. Good so far? We have a team on the field, we've got the teammates on the sideline, and we have the head coach. Okay? In this scenario, head coach calls the plays. Okay? There's some players on the field. They have specific instructions they're supposed to do. Working together for a common goal. Would you say our goal is to be in the kingdom? Is that a fair statement? Governed by the head coach. Okay. These guys have a purpose. They're on the field. They're running the play that's been called by the head coach. And Jay, this goes to kind of what you were saying. It parallels this perfectly. There's a bunch of people on the sidelines. They're not in the game, but what are they doing?
They're on the team, ready to go in if needed.
They're on the team. They're watching. They're encouraging. How many of you ever watched football? Come on, admit it. All right. Sometimes there are disagreements on the field, right?
You mean
Every now
between
and
the
then.
two teams or on the same team?
No. This is only one team.
Yeah, right, okay.
You know, oh, you didn't. You were supposed to go that way, not that way. What are you doing, you idiot? Right? You seen that kind of stuff happen? But then what?
Usually on losing teams.
Well,
A point to be made.
yeah. Then they re-hub. They get back together over here. Okay, what's the plan? We're going to do this. You're going to go this. You're going to go here. You're going to go here. They run another play. Do they dwell on the play that just happened that maybe Scott went the wrong way, or I went the wrong way, or I turned the wrong direction or something?
You don't give them the ball again.
Not right away, huh?
Halftime's not gonna be fun in the locker room.
Sometimes the quarterback argues with the head coach. You seen that? Runs to the sideline and they're just screaming and yelling at each other. Ultimately, who has the authority? Not in modern day football, because we know in modern day the quarterbacks rule everything. But in the real world of regular football, who has the authority? Jerry Jones, exactly. The quarterback and the running backs and the linemen, the grunts who are doing all the dirty work, never get any glory except for the left tackle. Gets the glory. He protects the quarterback from blindside. They can argue with the head coach. They can have disagreements. But what is the commonality between the players and the coach?
We're on the same page?
They better be listening.
On the same page, better be listening.
Same play.
Same playbook.
Same goal.
They're
Same
trying to
goal
get
and
to the
instructions.
kingdom.
What was it,
Same
Jim?
goal.
Same goal. They have the same goal.
Yeah.
As Jay was saying, our family and friends who are on the sideline, they're on the same team. They have the same goal. They haven't been put in the game yet. They haven't read the playbook enough yet.
Good.
Maybe they don't quite understand. If I'm this person, I go here, I don't go there. But what do we do as a body of Torah believers more often than not? We run over here and start yelling at the teammates for being on the sidelines. That's where they're supposed to be. There's only so many that can be out here on the field at one time, running the plays. Now, what's missing from this?
The other team.
The
The
opposition.
other team. Do we have opposition to the goal?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Of course. We have all the zeros. Wink, wink.
We have
Goals
two
empty.
guys.
We have a lot of zeros over here on the other side of the ball. We have our linebackers. There's enough of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's close enough. Get the picture. What is their goal?
To stop you from getting into there.
Stop you from getting over here.
Mhm.
Who's trying to stop you?
The
The other team
The enemy.
The enemy.
or your teammates?
The
Who's
other
trying to
team.
stop you from getting to the goal?
The other
The
team.
enemy.
There you go.
The other team.
Mhm.
How often do we think and pretend that these people are trying to stop us from getting to the goal?
Exactly. We don't fight flesh and blood. We fight.
We fight the
Powers.
zeros. We fight the O's. We fight the defense. Now, this is called the defense. This is called the
Offense.
offense. Something, again, God's been showing me. What word do we get from the word offense, or what word do we get offense from?
Offensive?
Offensive. Offend.
Mhm.
How many people have been offended? Actually, the hand should be down. How many have offended
Oh.
the enemy? We better all put our hands up. We were supposed to offend this guy. We were supposed to offend, deliberately attack, and try to get through him to get to the goal. But what do? We turn from him and we head right to the sidelines. And we start
Or we get-
offending, deliberately attacking the teammates, our family, our friends. Hang on. Because we've taken our eye off of what?
The goal.
The goal. When we take our eye off the goal, we see our teammates as our enemies. We keep our eye on the goal, we're going to have opposition. Yeshua said we would.
So what's the key?
What is the key?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Of who? The enemy?
No.
The teammates. Just because they're not on the field doesn't mean they're supposed to be on the field. They have the same goal. They want to be over here. They may not know how to get there yet. They haven't read the playbook enough.
Also not judging.
Exactly. We're not going to run over here and tell them they're wrong for sitting on the sideline. But we do, don't we? How many people at any time in the past month spent more than 5 minutes on Facebook and saw this. The people on the field attacking the teammates. I saw it a bunch.
Mhm.
How many people, the same people who were on Facebook, saw attacking the enemy? I didn't see any. I saw attacks here. Now,
Well, you know
people
what?
can take offense. Something we do a lot. If I say, Scott, your hair is the wrong color and it's out of place and it doesn't match your skin tone and your shirt certainly doesn't match at all, am I offending him?
Yes.
Yes. Why? Because I'm deliberately coming at him, deliberately attacking him. Like I'm supposed to be attacking the enemy, but I'm attacking my brother. Now, if I say, you know what? I don't really understand Jasher. Am I offending him? Can he take offense?
Sure, he could.
He could take offense. He could say, oh, he offended me. No, he took offense. If I deliberately attack him, I'm offended. If we're facing the same direction, going to the same goal, and have a difference of opinion, he could take offense. That's his choice. I could take offense by something he says. That's my choice. But if we focus on this, we're not focusing on this. Remember, the shield of faith deflects what?
Arrows of the enemy.
Fiery arrows of the enemy. If my shield is here and I turn it here, how's it going to help me against the arrows?
You get stuck.
It's not going to work very good. I need to face him. I need to face and fight with him. We're on the same team. We're going the same direction. We have the same goal. I may think we should have done that play that way, and he may think we should have done that play that way. Big deal. Go back to the playbook. Go back to the coach. Coach, how do you want us to run this play? And we'll link up arm in arm, or we'll hand in hand in the huddle, however they want to do it. We'll say, you know what? There's our enemy. There's our goal. Let's go. But so often, I think we should have run a 42 left green. I think we should have run a 43 right blue. We let that be the battle. Our battle is not against flesh and blood. We have an enemy who's trying to stop us. We have teammates who are watching everything that goes on. When we turn and fight them, can we ever go forward if we're going?
But there's also something else, though, that I don't like sometimes. We go to an extreme one sometimes, like everything that I have really learned on religion, you know, on how to, what the Bible says, et cetera, et cetera. I had a discussion with someone, and